What's up, Raider Nation? Welcome to True Raider Podcast. What's going on this TGI Raiders Friday Live? Let's see who's up in the building already, man. We got Raider Ryan up here, Christopher Raiders. Salute. What's going on, guys? What's going on today, man? I'm getting excited. Starting to get excited. Let's hit it right out the gate, man. Raider Ryan started out this live talking about the salary cap goes up tomorrow, right? And there's some speculation on the numbers. What does that look like? What's that number going to be? He put Nation, what's going on? True. What's the Nation going to talk about today? Tomorrow, our salary cap number goes up to 36 million, I believe. I've also heard 41 million. Who are we going after? I have heard a different numbers, man. I've Googled some different numbers. It gets a little bit weird. It looks like Chris put it down here that right now we're at 18 million, 24.1 freed up after June 1st. So by June 3rd, we will have 41 to 42 million. Oh man, and I got one of them little kittens in this room. Oh well, we're gonna have to deal with that. So yeah, what we're looking at is, and that's kind of the numbers I keep coming up with, roughly somewhere in the low 40 million range. And I honestly would be surprised if we stick and stay in a position where we don't go out and make another signing with $42 million available to us. So, I mean, one of the things, and it looks like you guys were already talking about it, Raider Ryan. We can try to offer a restructure to Kuntz contract before we can't afford him. I know we drafted one hell of a linebacker, but I also think Spillane deserves one too. See, and I think that they're going to have to go through this roster right now that there's some freed up money and make a determination on, who do we want to extend since now, who do we want to lock down and make sure that they don't go test the market next year when they become available. We have a lot of people that are on a contract year, but there's also the flip side of that, right? When you have players that are playing on a contract year, we all saw what happened with Josh Jacobs playing on a contract year. He had 2,000 all-purpose yards, 1,600 rushing yards. He was the rushing champion. And so what happens when somebody is playing for a contract, they go out and they ball out, right? And so being in a position where, we're putting these guys out there to go earn their payday, it's kind of hard to pay them in advance. Now, I know that there's a lot of speculation about the Kuntz thing, because if we don't pay him now and extend him, and he goes out there and he balls out, he gets 10 plus sacks, another team is going to give him a big contract. So it could be that Kuntz and his camp don't even want to sign a deal yet. They might want to hold out, and he might bet on himself and go out there and try to earn that larger contract. It would really depend on what the Raiders would be willing to offer him if they really see it that he's going to continue on this trajectory. And I wouldn't be mad at all if we went ahead and secured Kuntz, for the foreseeable future, and then rotated him and Tyree Wilson, or maybe looked at, Wilson moving to DT, but there's a lot of different things about that, because a lot of the offseason stuff in OTAs, they're showing that Tyree Wilson is spending a lot of time with Max Crosby and he's really up in his game. I saw some footage from Sanji. If you guys haven't seen it, go check it out. And he was comparing the takeoff on Max Crosby and Tyree Wilson. They were side by side, and right when the snap happens, like, Tyree Wilson is keeping up with Max Crosby pretty good on, off the snap, which was amazing, because what we really saw last year was he was really slow to get out of his stance. So, I'm really, I don't know, man, because Tyree Wilson might be our guy of the future on the outside edge. And then at that point, do we really need a Malcolm Kuntz? I think that definitely having depth in that department is a plus, and we would need that. But how much is it going to cost? And is the cost going to be worth what, how many snaps he's getting and how we're going to play him? And I think that they could make room for that, but I don't really know what that exactly looks like. Um, let's see. Damn, Rent's talking about signing Dak. He already wanted Cousins. I personally, I don't want Dak. I don't want Cousins. I was in a live, man, where I made a comment about that Dak Prescott was a fourth round pick. Aiden O'Connell's a fourth round pick. What's to say that he doesn't have that same potential, right? And not saying that he's as good as Dak, but saying what's to say he can't reach a potential there, and like the reaction that I got, like I really didn't like that, man. But it's all right. I my feelings, man. I don't get all my feelings all bundled up and then take it out on the nation or take it out on content creators. I get over shit real easy, man. But the big one that I see is that, like, I don't think that that's a laughable point. I really think that we haven't seen all we can see out of Aiden O'Connell. And yes, he has a different playing style than Dak Prescott, but to go pay Dak Prescott 40, 50, $60 million, for he's a good quarterback, but is it worth the money? I don't know if that's, what are other deficits are we going to have on our roster because of that? Because we watch it year in and year out where, Patrick Mahomes got paid and all of a sudden they're cutting Tyreek Hill. And yes, they've won 2 Super Bowls since then. So that's not a great comparison. Herbert got paid and now they cut all of their offensive weapons and they're starting fresh. And, there's a lot of times where the quarterback gets paid and then all of a sudden you can't retain those other veteran players that are difference makers on your roster. And what does that look like, So I'd like to see what Aiden O'Connell has to offer because he's cheap. He's already on the team. Let's see where he's at, And honestly, if he shits the bed this year and Minshew's not that guy either, it's like, well, then let's go, either draft another quarterback or let's go look at these free agents, right? But right now, I think is way, way too early to be talking about that. I think it's way too early. We need to see what's going on. So Chris talking about Spillane, Hobbs, and Kuntz need an extension, thinking they going to wait till season starts. And it might be at the beginning of the season, and these guys might want to wait until the end of the season. That way they can bet on themselves and show out, and some of them it might be in the Raiders' best interest to get ahead of that. We'll see what ends up happening with that. Anthony Estrada, what's up, man? Salute. What's going on, man? Glad you made it. Good to see you. Let's see. Hope everyone in the chat enjoyed the holiday weekend. For me, man, my holiday weekend was awesome. We ended up like a bunch of different like yard sales and stuff. We went and picked up some bikes for the kids, and I took the kids out and we rode some bikes. We did some stuff in the yard and did a lot of outdoor stuff. It was really cool, man. I was really into it because we've been cooped up all winter, man. I mean, here in New Mexico, it's weird because we're desert, but we're like a high desert. So like during the winter, it gets cold, but there's like not really snow, right? And then during the summer, it gets pretty brutal out here, man. We're not like Arizona hot, but it gets pretty hot out here, man. Let's see. Why would we go backwards with a QB that is the same what we need? And that's the thing, right? Is like Dak Prescott, he's a good quarterback, right? He's always been considered one of those more of a first or second tier quarterback, but he hasn't won any real significant games. They get to the playoffs, and it's funny because one of the Cowboys fans at my work, man, he likes to talk trash, but then if you throw it back at him, he's like, yeah, you're right. He's like, we always make it to the playoffs and then we're out in the first round, and it's like there's this consistent thing where it looks like Dak doesn't show up in those big games when it counts, right? And it could be situational, it could be a whole team thing, but it really looks like a Dak Prescott thing, right? And so like, would I love to make the playoffs every year? Yeah, so if we got Dak Prescott and we're making the playoffs every year, but then getting knocked out, I'm happier with that than not making the playoffs. But I'm also not trying to replicate America's most moderate team, right? I want to get to a Super Bowl. I want to win a Super Bowl. It's like I've been able to see the Raiders get to the Super Bowl once, since in my lifetime, and I would definitely love to actually see us win a Super Bowl, man. I don't think anybody should go their whole life without being able to see their team win a championship, man. Chris Ferrader, smash some likes. Hey, I appreciate you guys. Hit that like, get us in the algorithm. I know I haven't been putting out nearly as much content. It's a slow season. But I've got a lot of stuff going on with my family. There's been a lot of different changes going on with schedule stuff and with custody stuff, things like that. And so just definitely doing what we can to show up in a better way on that. And in the next coming weeks, there's going to be a couple weeks where I don't do any lives, man. I'm going to be going out to California. We're going to go, drive out there with the kids. We're going to go stay in Palm Springs for a couple nights, and then we're going to head out to Disneyland, man. The kids haven't, well, my stepdaughter went when she was like probably like 3, and my son, he's 8 now. He's never been, so he's super excited. We're leaving in 2 weeks, actually. We'll be out there. So, there's going to be a couple Fridays where we don't do the live. I'll be here next Friday, but the next 2 Fridays after that, we won't be doing a live. So I'll see if there's another time that I can jump on, man. But, I don't want to fall too far out of the algorithm or nothing, because I love rocking with the nation, man. And when you guys are here, we have a good live, Yeah, I feel that, chilling with the fam, and that's the most important thing to me in life, right? Because I've watched so many people, get their life together, and they're, successful, but they're working all the time, right? And they're making money, and they're buying a bunch of stuff, and they got a big house and a new car and a new truck and a boat and a camper, and then they don't have time to use those things, and then they get maybe a day, if they're lucky, per week with their family, and I'm blessed, man. I got a 3-day weekend every week. I work 4 10s, and I really get to spend a lot of time with my family, and I really am taking advantage of that to the best of my ability, man. you know um let's see, in Arizona, law should have a pool at every house, dude. Arizona is no joke, man. I went out there one year, and it must have been like July or August, dude, and I was out there staying with a friend, and she didn't have a air conditioner in her car, which is insane, and so it's like 100 degrees, and like I'm driving that car with an oven mitt and stuff. It was rowdy, man. We don't got it like that in New Mexico, but it's still gets pretty hot. Chris is in the Mojave Desert, man. Yeah. I don't want to get too off track. I love talking personal stuff. I love getting all this stuff, man. But I definitely want to talk about the Raiders, man. I had to work the holiday weekend, Raider Ryan, but off this weekend with great weather tomorrow, and we'll enjoy it while it's here. I'm in Longview, Washington, but I miss my Cali weather. You guys definitely got, even being over there on the West Coast, still a major difference in the weather, man. So yeah, some of the things I wanted to talk about, man, was these pressers that went out a couple days ago, right? One of them was Jack Jones. Jack Jones came into this presser just hyped, right, smiling, and they even made a comment like, "Oh, you still smiling?" And he's like, I'm gonna stay smiling." And he seems to just have such a good attitude what's going on, and he made comments about considering himself to already be a premier corner in the league, and he's like, "I don't care what you guys think, and no offense, but that he already thinks he's there, and honestly, I love that thought process, because he's not basing his self-worth off of what other people say about him, because especially in today's age with social media and all these things, like there's a lot of negativity out there. It's like it's amazing, like I'm very small still, and there's sometimes comments that are like, people calling me an undercover Chiefs fan, and like going on some like weird stuff, and that's with like 400 subs, so it's like, whoa, man. I can only imagine, when you're at that point in life where it's like you got mainstream media, you got massive amounts of social media, and just all the comments, all the chatter. It can be a whole lot of negativity, and if somebody's basing their self-worth on that, they're going to set themselves up for failure, and that's what Aiden O'Connell was talking about, just kind of drowning that stuff out and not paying attention, because somebody can end up all messed up, and I think that's one of the things that Tyree Wilson was kind of doing early on, because last year there was a couple of content creators that he actually reached out to him and made comments on some of the stuff that they had said on the channel. And he's like, hey, keep an eye out for this. I'm working on this. And, and that's cool, right? Because you get to see like, okay, what are people saying about me and how can I improve? But if you take that as like, what are people saying about me, and then go, oh man, you know, maybe I should just give up, or maybe they're right. Maybe I'm just not it, and it can really get somebody to spin out, man. Uh, There we go. No explanation. Take the kids on summer vacation. Exactly, man. That's one of the things, man, is like when I was a kid, I didn't really remember like all the times when, I was at the store and I wanted a toy and I got my way, or I didn't really remember like all these other weird things, right? But the things that I really, really stuck out in my memory was when we went on trips, right? When we went out to California, when we went camping up in Colorado, when we went out there and did stuff as a family. Those are the things that I really, really remembered, man. Let's see. Um, so player not named Bowers, you looking at this season? What player not named Bowers am I looking at this season? Is that what you're talking about? That's gonna kind of make be that difference maker. I would have to say Michael Mayer. I was watching this this presser, man, with how do you say his last name, man? I don't wanna butcher it, man. It's Luke Steckel. Luke Steckel, he got me hyped up, man. He's our tight ends coach. And like I was watching this coach presser, man, and I was just like, I was kind of feeling like not really engaged in it. I was working, I was just kind of going along. And then all of a sudden Luke Steckel came on, man, and he's just like hyped, man. And he's talking up Mayer and he's saying, if there's a Michael Mayer fan club, like I'm the president of it, and it's like, dang, man, like if that's what our tight end coach is saying about Michael Mayer right now, I really think that he's gonna take that leap. What it sounded like Bowers is putting in that work, and he's a talented athlete, but it's kind of sounded like Luke Steckel was actually looking at Michael Mayer as being that guy, and then he was talking about, tight ends earning receptions, they're not just given, right? And so it's like if you want to earn those receptions, you're going to earn them in the run blocking game, in the pass blocking game, right? He's like, tight ends are blockers first and then receivers after. And I really like that mentality, man, because like that, that's an extra asset out there on the field, where if you have a tight end out there that's not blocking for you, then they're just a waste of space if they're not the one that's catching the ball there, So if you got somebody that's out there and making those big blocks, like, if you watch the teams that have, really good tight ends, that's what they're out there doing. And so I want to see that for us, and I like that our coach wants to see that out there for us, man. It looks like Michael Mayer has really gotten out of his mental block. He made it pretty clear that the Josh McDaniels thing was like complicated and that it's a lot more simple. And Luke Steckel was commenting on that comment, right? And he was saying that that's really good to hear, because it's a coach's job to simplify it, right? To make it make sense for the players. And if you're putting them in a system that's too complicated and they don't understand it, it's like then you're not getting your goals met, right? You're not getting to done what you need done out there on the field. And so if you're able to simplify it for your players, that they're going to succeed in the system. So I really think that Michael Mayer is going to make a huge jump, man. I'm also really excited to see Dylan Laube, man. Dylan Laube, I think that there's a lot of good stuff that they're talking about in OTAs right now. He's making there's like a lot of chatter around him, right? There's a lot of he's getting people's attention, and being a 6th-round rookie from New Hampshire, that's a beautiful thing to see, man, because Laube is a talented player, right? And if you watch any of his tape, like it shows, man, this dude was a menace in the receiving game. He's definitely a menace in the run game. He could work on his blocking, right? I think that he needs some work there, but it's not awful. It's just he's kind of a smaller guy, right? But I think that with some good coaching, he can step up his game in that. And Dylan Laube, man, I think is going to be a big difference maker. Maybe not this year, maybe towards the end of the year, but definitely next year. I think that he's going to be one of those guys, you know. I think that he's going to really kind of have to earn it a lot this year with special teams, but you know, Amir Abdullah might not be in that position as a third down back for very long, man, because I think Dylan Laube is going to take that. And honestly, I don't know. I don't know how long he'll stay as a running back 3 either, man. So Jack Jones is good for the team with that confidence. Yes. So Jack Jones was really talking it up in his presser, talking about like him really seeing the Raiders as being able to have the number 1 defense, right? And I love that confidence. He is kind of on the cocky side, which, you know, that one kind of makes me feel uneasy when somebody's a little cocky instead of just confident. But also it's kind of who Jack Jones is, right? And he's one of those guys that so far he's been able to back it up on the Raiders, right? I mean, he came in and he made a huge difference. You know, like when we cut Marcus Peters, I was like, man, I really thought Marcus Peters was going to be that guy, and Jack Jones stepped in, and he was what all of us wanted Marcus Peters to be all along, but he was really putting in that effort, and he's not, you know, pulling the diva role where, oh, I can't make tackles, I'm just here for pick sixes, you know. And so yeah, I mean, Jack Jones I think is definitely part of what's happening with our defense, where like everybody just seems so bought in on that side of the ball. And in this coach's presser, like they were talking about how really it's like, you know, their defense is solid, right? And they're really confident in their defense, and it's the offense that's having a lot of changes, right? Bringing in Luke Getsy and really seeing what that's going to look like. And honestly, like I think Luke Getsy's offense is going to translate a lot better with this Raiders team, right? With the players that we have in place. I think it's going to work a lot better than it did out there in Chicago. I don't think that Justin Fields is the kind of quarterback that can run that offense. I'm really hoping that we have the quarterback in on our roster right now that's going to be able to do that. See, Jason, I'm really looking forward to seeing Trey Tucker in his second year. Jack Jones identified him as a guy that can change the game. You know, and Trey Tucker, man, I love Trey Tucker. And there's a lot of talk on other channels of Michael Gallup being above Trey Tucker on the depth chart. And I don't believe that. You know, that's not what I would do if I was in control of this depth chart. Honestly, Michael Gallup would be on the outside, you know, looking in and trying to stay on the roster, right? Michael Gallup is good, but Trey Tucker offers a lot of things I think Michael Gallup doesn't, right? Michael Gallup's got him beat on size. Trey Tucker's a very small guy, right? He's like 5'8", and so I think a lot of people don't really like that. And you know, last year he was a rookie, so of course there was a little bit of rookie mistakes where, you know, the ball's kind of, you know, bobbling as he's running out of bounds, things like that. But he seemed to tighten that up. And him and Aiden O'Connell, if Aiden O'Connell is our starter, they have a really good rapport. They got really good timing, and I think that, you know, Trey Tucker, he's going to be one of those guys that we're going to be really happy that stays on our roster, right? Because he really opens up the field, you know, because when you're down on the bottom right and you got Brock Bowers, you got Michael Mayer, you got Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, none of those guys are extremely fast, right? None of them are really slow, but they're not really extremely fast, right? And so, but you're looking for that, you know, short to mid-range ball for most of the time with those guys. But if you got Trey Tucker just hauling ass, running a straight line, you got to pay, the safety's got to pay attention to him. And if you're running a 2 tight end set and one of those safeties is having to get on Trey Tucker, well, all of a sudden somebody's open down there, or somebody's in mismatch coverage with a linebacker that's not going to really be able to cover, you know, nearly as good as the safety would, right? And so it's really, Trey Tucker is going to make a difference for that 2 tight end set. I very much believe it. Yeah, Raider Ryan. You watched the clips that Sanji showed from OTAs. Max was like a man on fire out there, you know. And I love watching them clips, man. You know, I see a lot of comments on social media that's like, oh, it's OTAs. Like, of course, everybody looks good and they're gonna talk good about everybody, but that's not entirely true, man. The Commanders are already, you know, there's already rumors swirling about their third round pick. I forget who the guy is, man, but you know, I saw some articles about it where they're talking about that he might end up getting cut, you know, and he might not make the roster, that's scary, man, as a third round pick. But we got a third round pick from last year that didn't really get any playing time, Byron Young, and there's not really any talk about him this year either, and so like those are things that can happen. So when you got, a 6th round pick that's, Dylan Laube that's getting some really good hype, I mean, that's amazing to me. And then what's his name? Trey Taylor. Trey Taylor, I just found out that he does a lot of stuff in special teams, which I didn't realize that at first. And so like I'm really looking at like our special teams with this new kickoff rule. I think that they're gonna try a lot of different things. And I think Trey Taylor has an opportunity to really get involved in this roster through special teams. I think Dylan Laube's got to be that guy. You got to put Dylan Laube out there for special teams, man. The way he plays, the way he runs, I think he's going to do amazing there. Um, I'm really interested to see what that new kickoff rule brings to the game. Sorry, I got a kitten up here that's messing around, man. He's tripping me out. All right, let's see what else is going on. Chad Smith, hey, I'm glad you made it, man. Glad you made it. I know we're I've been a little bit flip-floppy with the time, man, so I think it's throwing things off. And then honestly, next week I can't do the 1 o'clock slot. I'm gonna have to do, well, it's 1 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. I don't know what time it is for y'all. But yeah, next week I'm gonna have to do an earlier time slot. So I'm thinking about going live probably about 2 hours earlier than I usually do. I'll make sure to post it in advance. That way you guys know about it, man. See, don't want to talk about McDummy, but he thought he was the smartest in the room. Yeah, man. And it's funny because I work in like the field where I work with addiction, right? And it's funny because always when I'd see him at the pressers, I'm like, this guy is like resembling somebody that's high on cocaine, man. And then when Chandler Jones came out and he was like putting out all his crazy videos and he said that he was a Coke boy, I was like, dude, that makes so much sense, man. And that would make sense why the inflated ego and the lack of ability to really listen to others' feedback and thinking that his way is going to be the best way no matter what is actually going on around him. So, you know, um, yeah, man. And Laube is bigger than Amir. That is correct, man. And Laube is dude, I don't know, man. I think that you guys have probably watched tape on him. If you have not, get out there and watch some tape on Dylan Laube, man. That dude is insane. And I know that he was playing for a smaller school, and so like, some people have told me that like, yeah, he looks good on tape, but it was smaller school. Let's see how he actually shows up against, bigger competition. But if in OTAs they're already talking about him so good, um it's not like the coaching staff is going to be delusional and thinking, oh yeah, he looks good in OTAs, but then he's going to get out there on the field and totally not be able to keep up at the NFL level. Like, I think that that's telling that this guy's putting in the work, and you could tell by like his draft videos and stuff that this dude is so hyped about it that he's going to be one of those guys that gets here and puts in that extra work, because some people get to the NFL Jamarcus Russell, and they just kind of like sit back, like, okay, cool, I got paid, I made it, I've arrived, and not really being in that mentality of like, okay, like this is where I really got to step up my game to be able to keep up, and that's what I like to see. Let's see, Raider Ryan. I'm looking at Mumford and Morig to step up. Um, you know, I like Trayvon, man. I think that he's a good safety. I think that he's going to be our guy that we end up keeping. I think that Marcus Epps, unless he really has a phenomenal year, I think that he's going to maybe be on the bubble, man, unless we can keep him. If we can retain him for cheap, cool. But like we got Chris Smith still, who hasn't gotten much playing time. We got Paul, we got Trey Taylor, our safety room, we got some guys in there, but I think that Trayvon is going to be one of those guys that we keep, and then, Mumford, there was some Sanji T was putting out some stuff too about the right side of the line, right? And Dylan Parham and Thayer Mumford and like seeing what that looks like, man, and like, to be honest, I think that those two are really well suited next to each other. It looked to me, at least from the tape that I was watching, that like they kind of complement each other well. Um, and we're gonna really see what our line ends up looking like starting day, because there's a lot of like stuff floating out there right now. Colton Miller's hasn't been practicing, Devontae Adams, da da da, but really those guys are still in the building. Colton Miller was even out there on the field. He just wasn't practicing because he's got that shoulder injury, and that was one of the things I was talking about of maybe we need to go ahead and trade him while he still has value. Um, I like Colton Miller and I want him to play his best, but if that injury is going to hold him back from being in games, then we're going to be in this kind of rough position, man, where he loses value and we're having to replace him anyway. Um, but really, for him to be out there and putting strain on that shoulder right now, it doesn't make any sense. Save it for training camp. That way, he's not getting injured. We don't want anybody getting injured. I know right now, Jackson Powers Johnson has kind of been sitting out with the injury, and they haven't really disclosed exactly what's going on with him. And I honestly, my gut tells me that he's going to be all right. That they're just not trying to get him more hurt right now. But um, I don't know, man. Matador, I hope Peters was a joke. Let's see. My 2 cents. Salute, salute. Hey, welcome to the building, man. Glad you made it. Glad you made it. I would be at home screaming at the TV for Marcus Peters to do something, man. I was the same way, dude. You just watch him, right? Like he's setting up, and then the ball gets kind of thrown, down below him to the side, and he'd do this little like and like not even like make a real attempt at all. It was really awful to watch, man. And AP saw that and he didn't take no shit. Regardless of who Marcus Peters was, he's like, nah, you're not doing that. And he benched him. And when Marcus Peters had that bad attitude, it's like, all right, you're done then. And I really, that gained a lot more respect from me, from Marcus Peters. I mean, for AP, because I liked Marcus Peters, right? But after seeing his attitude and all that, it's like, dude, like, no, man, we can't be doing that. And really, like other times, I think that we would have ended up just keeping him out there, and I love that AP just was like, dude, no, we're not doing that. Because one bad seat, man, like it's just like if you have like some like strawberries or something in the fridge, right? And one of them gets moldy, you put a moldy strawberry in there with the good ones, and that thing's gonna spread, quick. But you remove that from the situation, and okay, these can actually survive, longer, right? And so kind of same thing in the locker room, right? If you got one, person that's just really not bought in and not putting in that effort, it can have this negative ripple effect, And so being able to maintain, what we got going, it's like getting rid of stuff like that is vital, and it's showing out, man. Like these guys are bought in, dude. I'm so hyped. Like anytime that you see any of these players and staff talking, it's like it's very clear that like everybody in that locker room is like they're bought in, they're putting in that work, they're not slacking. Like I think that alone is going to make it to where like we're going to be one of those teams that other teams are not going to have fun going against, man. He could have at least stuck his foot out. Yeah, I mean, he might draw a flag, but you didn't give up the touchdown, right? Like, dang, like do something, dive in front of him or do anything. There was that one horse collar tackle, which it seemed like a bad flag, but he stopped the touchdown and they ended up having to kick a field goal. So that was actually really a difference maker. But if he had put in the effort earlier, he probably wouldn't have had to do that. Let's see, who you finally want to see on the roster off the practice squad. Mine, I really want Isaiah Palomau to make his way up. Troy Palomau, ex-Steelers, his nephew, I believe. Yeah, so this is his nephew. I would love to see Palomau, really, really get a lot more playing time. He did get a nice pick last year. It was kind of thrown in his lap, but he didn't drop it, and he was in the right spot at the right time. I really think that he's going to be one of those guys that we start seeing more of. One of the guys that I'd like to really see is DJ Turner. Like I know that he really like. I guess they're not really seeing something of him in the wide receiver room, and I think Trey Tucker is pretty much the replacement for him on that. But he's really stepped up his game in the special teams, and I think that that just shows that he's putting in that work, he's putting in that effort, and I'd like to see if he gets a little bit more of a chance in the receiving game, and see what he could do there. I don't think that we would have brought in Michael Gallup if DJ Turner was going to make that leap, but I don't think that Michael Gallup is as much competition for Trey Tucker as he is for like DJ Turner. Um, he is also competition for Trey Tucker because AP wants to put competition at every level. That way, these guys will step up their game, and that way you have the best guy on the field no matter what. See, only 2 players can be protected on the practice squad. What 2 players do you think it's going to be? Some teams are looking to have a safety or linebacker kick the ball off. Oh, because of the new rules? I haven't seen anything on that, man. You got more information on that? Because I haven't seen anything on that. I saw some jokes going around that Steelers were kind of talking about Justin Fields maybe playing special teams, which might not be such a joke, because the dude can run. But that would be interesting, man, if they picked him up just to have him return kicks. And see, Mao is a beast and makes the most of his opportunities. And that's really, I mean, that sounds to me like what AP is looking for. That's what I love to see. Somebody that goes out there, puts in that work, makes the most out of their opportunity. I don't like when somebody's just kind of like, I've arrived, I'm good, I don't need to progress anymore. Any situation in life, it upsets me, right? Because I'm a person that's in recovery, and I constantly am working on myself and building myself and becoming a better man, right? And I want to not only do that for myself, but I want to surround myself with people that are doing the same thing. And so when then we got players on our roster that aren't doing that, I'm like, dude, like you're like in your 20s, you're in the NFL, you have this amazing opportunity that the majority of people will never have. Right. And there's people that are probably more deserving of being in that position, but just couldn't afford to get into a big school. And so they never got to get seen. Right. And it's like when you got an opportunity like that, man, like don't piss it off, man, because there's people that are begging to be in your shoes. Laube is yoked. That kid, man, that kid's no joke, dude. I think that he's going to be one of those guys that continues to progress in the NFL. He strikes me as somebody that's going to come in and put in that work, and we're going to see the best Dylan Laube that we can see. No matter what that looks like, I think that he's going to be one of those dudes, man, that actually puts in that work. And it sounds like Paul Mao is one of those guys that can, that's been doing that too. Let's see. Chris Raiders, don't forget to smash some likes. Appreciate it. California Dave made it to the building. What's going on? JPJ didn't finish Senior Bowl either, from what I hear. He's injury prone. And that's going to be one of those things, right? Because I think that's an amazing pickup. The dude's a beast. I think that he's got that physicality, that ill intent. He's got, who Richie Incognito is talking about, that like he's out there to put people on their ass, right? And I really I hope that that's not the case, man, because if your best ability is your availability, right? If he can't be available, then his ability on this roster definitely decreases a lot. Let's see. Don't start ranting. JP Chase injury prone based on that, unless you have further. Well, it looks like there's a little bit more. He's injured in the Oregon State game, but played through it. Senior Bowl, he had to attend to raise his stock. Yeah, man. I mean, I really hope that we're not in that position to where JPJ is going to be one of those guys that's out on injury a lot, because if he's missing a lot, see, it looks like he missed a lot of 22 season also. Yeah, if he can't stay on the field, then we're gonna have some problems. Now, it's good that we got Andres Pete that can step in at that left guard position, if he's out on injury. And I think that's part of what's going on right now, right? If he's having some injury, um, I'm glad that they're not straining him and they're not putting him in a position to where he's not, because really you don't win any games in May, right? We're not going to win a single game in May, and so for our guys to be out there and injuring themselves further is not, it's just not good for us at all, man. Just a concern of mine is all. Love the guy. Yeah, California Dave, I was so happy about that pick. Like really, like our first two picks were guys that like I had looked at and wrote off as they're not going to be available when we pick. And that's just the simple of it, right? I didn't think that we were going to get Jackson Powers Johnson in the first round. My thoughts were that we were either going to get a quarterback, Fuaga, or Arnold. I did not even think that Jackson Powers Johnson was going to be an option for us in the first round. So when we got Brock Bowers, I was really shocked, but I was like, that was a guy I looked at a little bit, but then was like, okay, like we're not going to get a tight end, so move on. But that's a good guy, And then same with JPJ, man, is like, that's a good guy, but we're not going to get him in the first. He's not going to be available in the second, and then there he was in the second round, man. It was amazing to get JPJ in the second round. What a value pick, man. Yeah, we'll see when the season starts, man. I'm honestly, guys, I'm really excited about this Raiders team. Um, this is the most excited I've ever been. I've been a fan for 23 years, and I've always had excitement about the Raiders. Well, I guess there's been a couple of years where it was like, yeah, I'm not too excited, to be honest. But especially as of the last several years, this is the most excited I've been, man. I really think that this team is going to go out there and give it their all. I really think that we're going to make a progression upward. A lot of, they're like having us projected at like 6 wins and things like that, and that doesn't make sense to me, right? We have better coaching. We retained all, the majority of our starters, and then we added really good pieces, Christian Wilkins, Brock Bowers, JPJ. Like we added a lot of good talent to this roster. So for them to think, oh yeah, we're gonna win less games, it doesn't even make sense. Even with Garner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, both of them, had a, if they had played the entire season, would have had a better record than 6 wins, right? So I don't see it, man. And then looking at our schedule, honestly, I think 9 is the basement for us, and I really think that 12 is our ceiling. I really think that we're going to be somewhere in the middle of that. I'm thinking more like 10 or 11 wins, man. But we'll see how this goes. Christopher Raiders fans in 76, 77. I cannot wait for this season to start. Yeah, man. As you should be. I'm really hyped for this team. I don't think I've ever been this excited for them. And that's exactly it, man. And like, if we're this excited, like I can only imagine the excitement that's going on in that locker room. JPJ played 12 games in 2022. Yeah, is that true? I'll have to look into that. Bowers' pick took a minute to sink in, not to used to us getting best player available instead of need. That was shocking to me when they're like Brock Bowers, and it's just like, wait, what? Like, what are we doing? What, a tight end? What are we doing? And then like scramble to look him up and look about, because like, okay, like I knew a little bit about him, but not much, right? And so I started like looking into depth and looking, and there's like, okay. And by the end of the night, it was like, this was solid, but my initial reaction was like, why would we do that? Like, we have other needs. And honestly, we've had some bad luck with picking corners in the first round. And that would have really sucked to go out there and get a corner that ends up just being a flop. I think that our defense is really, really good, and our offense is really, I see why they focus on the offense for the first 3 picks, right? Is because that's where we really need to show up. Our defense is already proven that it's going to do great. We're ranked right now after the draft at number 8 on defense, and I hope that really translates. And then our offense is really where we need building, right? Our offense, if they can show up and at least put some points up instead of this 17 points every game Jimmy G status, I really see a lot of good things coming from that, man. I know, and we had just drafted Michael Mayer in the second round last year. It was a very confusing experience for sure. Let's see. Okay, you'd only seen his snap counts. Yeah, man. I mean, we're 45 minutes in, guys. I got, my family's waiting for me, man. They wanted to go do some stuff, and at first I was going to schedule to a different time, and then I decided, you know what, let's just go ahead, get in with the nation. I want to reconnect, make sure we stay with some kind of consistency here. Like I said earlier, I'm not going to be able to go on my usual time next Friday. So I'm going to be probably about 2 hours earlier. I'll make sure to schedule it in advance so you guys can see it out there. Um, let's see. Media in the NFL loves to hate on the Raiders, except Chris Berman from ESPN. They hate on the Raiders so bad. I can't ever really remember mainstream media ever really talking good about the Raiders, man. I mean, maybe in the early 2000s a little bit, but there's always just been this like weird, like, I don't know if stigma is the word I'm looking for, but they got this thing against the Raiders, and it's like, you know what? It is what it is, man. We don't need your approval, just like how Jack Jones doesn't need it, man. We'll see what goes on, man. Anthony, all right, bro. Stay blessed, man. Go hang with the fam. Send them some love from the nation. Thanks, Chris. On the way out, hit them likes for the algorithm. Share it to your friends. I'm hoping that by the end of June we can get up to 500 subs. Right now we're at like 415. So any of your family, friends, Raider fans, send them over, man. Send them over. I'd love to meet them. Anyway, man, that's it for me today. I love you, nation. I'll catch you guys on the next one.